Helen, I'm the head surf instructor here at Pura Vida Adventures, and this video is all about surfing paddling. Sometimes surfing is going to feel like 99% paddling and just 1% surfing. So if you can be good at the 99% part, then you're setting yourself up really well for the 1% standing up part. And in this video, I've restricted myself to my 10 favorite paddling tips. Now, tip number 1, and this is probably the most important one, is you must be on your sweet spot on your surfboard. Your sweet spot is where you're perfectly centered on the board. So I'm not too far forward and I'm not too far back. The nose of the board is just poking out of the water. If you are not on your sweet spot, if you're like this, you could have the paddling ability of Michael Phelps, but it's really not going to work. So make sure you're really nice and centered. You want to be lying right on this center line here called the stringer. And I like to imagine that there's a stringer running down the middle of my body and I need to match up those two stringers. Tip number 2 is have good posture when you are paddling. So good posture, or I'll show you bad posture first of all. So this is Helen. I've been to my friend's wedding, there was a free bar, but I'm not going to surf like this. In surfing, we want to have a really active and engaged body, so that means legs together. This is called slutty paddling, and no one wants to be called that, I don't think. So legs together, you want to arch your back slightly, boobs coming off the board slightly, engage your core, squeeze your butt, imagine you're holding in a fart. Make sure your shoulders are really pointing towards the nose, and keep your head nice and still as well. Your head is really heavy, so we don't want that to be moving, rocking from side to side. You want your board to be planing along really horizontally along the surface of the water. You don't want it to be rocking from side to side. So be really tidy on your surfboard. Tip number 3 is make your paddles really nice and long. So reach forward and your hand should exit the water right past the hip. There's a push and a pull phase in surfing paddling, and a lot of people, because the pull is sort of out of sight, out of mind, they don't do the pull phase, and those people are actually missing out on about the 30% capacity of their stroke. So sometimes when I'm paddling, I like to tell myself that maybe just splash a couple of droplets of water onto the backs of my legs when my hand is exiting the water, and that's going to ensure that my paddles stay really nicely long. Tip number 4 is when your hand enters the water, you want your wrist to be higher than your fingertips, you want your elbow to be higher than your wrist. This is called high elbow entry. And what that does is it ensures that the water goes back. You don't want to be just pushing water down or out to the sides or even up. You want the water going back. And a good way to tell yourself to do this is every time your hand enters the water, imagine that you're reaching over a barrel. Swimmers do this as well. And if you were reaching over a barrel, it would force you to keep that elbow high. Now that might seem like quite a subtle detail, but I promise you it will make a big difference to your paddling. Tip number 5 is no fairy taps. So fairy taps are when people, they make really sort of shallow slaps on the water. They're just using their paddle, their hand, as their paddle. But think of your paddle as extending all the way from your fingertips down to your elbow and part of your upper arm as well. So dig deep into the water, but without rolling the shoulders, and maintain a bend in the elbow when your arm is in that pull phase of the stroke. Feel the resistance of the water against your paddle. This is not a Sunday picnic. You've really got to feel the water. Tip number 6 is paddle with your back and less with your arms. So get over that idea that paddling is just something done with your arms independent of the rest of your body. You really want to try to use the big muscles across your back, across your chest, and in your core as well. So if you're reaching over the barrel, if you're maintaining a high elbow underwater, if you're leading with your elbow when the arm is coming over the water, even just by doing that on dry land, I think you'll start to feel that movement more in your lats rather than your shoulders. So really ask yourself sometimes when you're paddling, am I using those bigger muscles? Tip number 7, don't forget to breathe. I know this one sounds really obvious, but a lot of beginners, when they're on their initial forays out to the outside, they naturally get quite anxious and they sort of hold their breath. But when I'm paddling sometimes, and when I'm starting to get tired, I really sort of puff it out. I puff out my cheeks, and that will help you to dissipate any anxiety. It will also help you to get oxygen where it's needed. When you are paddling to the outside, that is a really good time to be focusing on your paddle technique. Because to be honest, when you're paddling to catch the wave, we all sort of switch into autopilot. And the way you paddle to catch a wave is going to be exactly the same way that you paddled when you were paddling to get out there. So when you're paddling to the outside, really ask yourself, am I reaching over the barrel? Are my paddles nice and long? Do I have good posture? Really focus on form and technique at that time. And then when you're paddling to catch the wave, it'll come really naturally. Tip number 9, those last 4 paddles when you're trying to catch the wave, those are the most important paddles. So save the best for last, save some energy in the tank. A lot of beginners, they tend to sort of back off on those last 4 paddles because they're already thinking about their pop-up, their trajectory on the wave. They back off and then they're probably going to miss the wave entirely. So imagine yourself, you want to be like an aeroplane. When an aeroplane is getting ready to take off, it's accelerating down the runway, and then just before it takes off, it switches into turbo mode, and then it gets going. And paddling is the same. You want to have some turbo paddles right before you pop up, and then you're going to get great at catching the wave. And then number 10, last but not least, get a really good paddle face. You want your paddle face when you are trying to catch a wave to be really warrior-like, to be committed. You have to really want that wave. So this is not the time for a Vogue photo shoot. You have to put every cell of your body into catching that wave, including your facial expression. And that means that if you're surfing with anyone else as well, if maybe they're eyeing up the same wave as you, but if they see you've got your paddle face on, then they're much less likely to snake you or to try to drop in on you. So that's my 10 tips. Well done if you made it to the end of this video. You deserve to be a good paddler. Obviously there's a lot more to paddling than just that, but if I made this video too long, no one would watch it. So if you want to find out more information about the surfing and yoga retreats here in Costa Rica, then check out the website, puravidaadventures.com. You could also subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that way you'll stay up to date with all the latest surfing how-to videos. So good luck with that, and happy surfing.